Sam has been staring at this screen for 45 minutes. The market is dipping, his retirement portfolio is bleeding red, and he is just millimeters away from hitting the sell button. Traditional finance models assume that in this exact moment, Sam will act as a perfectly rational, utility-maximizing calculator. These theories rely on the belief that he will coldly evaluate statistical probabilities and execute the mathematically optimal trade. In 1979, psychologist Daniel Kahneman introduced prospect theory, which provided the first robust evidence that humans do not actually calculate risk this way. Prospect theory is a behavioral model demonstrating how people decide between alternatives that involve risk and uncertainty. His research showed that when real money is on the line, people make choices based on how they emotionally perceive potential losses rather than objective gains. Standard economic models consistently fail to predict market behavior because they rely on the illusion of a robotic investor. These models ignore the messy, emotional reality of the human brain making the actual decisions. If we look inside Sam's head right now, the logical, calculating decision maker is being violently shoved aside. That rational robot has been overpowered by a chaotic crew of competing emotions and past experiences. Behavioral finance is the study of how these psychological influences and emotional biases drive the market fluctuations we see on this chart. The clean, linear trend line of traditional economics is constantly pulled into wild spikes by our internal impulses. To process the massive amount of incoming data on a trading screen, this internal crew relies on heuristics. Heuristics are rapid mental shortcuts the brain uses to quickly process complex information without doing the slow, heavy math. Rational mathematics might sit on the spreadsheets, but these rapid, emotional shortcuts are the true operators pulling the levers of our financial lives. One of the most powerful operators at this control desk is loss aversion. Loss aversion is a cognitive bias where the psychological pain of losing $50 is felt twice as intensely as the joy of gaining that same $50. On this scale, the negative weight simply feels much heavier. This chart illustrates the disposition effect, a direct result of loss aversion. The disposition effect is the tendency for investors to quickly sell assets that have increased in value to secure a win, while stubbornly holding on to losing assets out of a fear of realizing the pain. The winning peaks are chopped off, while the downward valleys drag on and drain the account. Then there is anchoring. Anchoring is a bias that occurs when an individual relies too heavily on the first piece of price information they encounter, like a stock's historical high, and continues to use it as a reference point even when current fundamentals have changed. Sitting right next to it is herd behavior. Herd behavior is the compulsion to mimic the actions of a larger group. When a few people start selling out of panic, independent analysis often shuts down and the entire crowd follows, leading directly to market bubbles and crashes. These biases evolved as necessary mental shortcuts for survival in high-risk environments. However, in the context of modern finance, they systematically sabotage complex investment strategies. To understand where these specific shortcuts get their instructions, we must look past the immediate panic at the control desk and travel down into the foundational subconscious archive of the brain. This archive is filled with money scripts. Money scripts are deeply ingrained, typically unconscious beliefs about wealth and finance programmed into us during childhood. Many of these scripts are forged during financial flashpoints. A financial flashpoint is a highly emotional or traumatic historical event, like a family bankruptcy or a sudden job loss, that creates a lasting cognitive imprint, teaching a child exactly what role money plays in the world. Other scripts are overtly programmed by society's idolization of wealth and status. A child observing these billionaire profiles quickly internalizes rules about self-worth, associating success strictly with the accumulation of possessions. By the time someone opens their first brokerage account, their financial behaviors are often automatic playbacks of this unexamined childhood programming. Individual childhood scripts are filtered through broad cultural dimensions, the overarching societal norms that dictate how an entire population perceives value and risk. For example, cultures prioritizing individualism focus heavily on personal achievement and building autonomous portfolios. In contrast, collectivism is a framework that derives financial meaning from group harmony, prioritizing family support networks and communal savings over solo wealth. The roots of Western analytical thought stretch back millennia. These philosophies trained the mind to separate objects from their context and prioritize the individual as an autonomous entity. Sustainable, holistic financial planning requires accounting for these specific cultural and generational backgrounds. Plans that rely purely on math often collapse under pressure because they ignore the underlying programming. Which brings us back to Sam's control room. The immediate biases, childhood scripts, and cultural pressures clash violently as he faces his stock decision, resulting in choice paralysis. Choice paralysis occurs when an individual is so overwhelmed by conflicting information and emotional overload that they cannot make a decision at all. Traditional financial advisors often struggle during these high-stress intersections. Correcting the math on a spreadsheet fails to address the underlying emotional gridlock and the internal hands fighting for control. Success in these moments requires intervention during the decisive moment. This is the critical, ephemeral fraction of a second where a person is about to take an action, like panic selling, that compounds exponentially over their lifetime. Behavioral coaching during these fleeting moments of panic represents the advisor's most significant value add. Providing guidance in the heat of the moment prevents the long-term cost of impulsive, imperfect choices. Financial therapy uses specific tools to break this mental gridlock. Financial therapy is a discipline that integrates psychological insights with financial planning. A primary technique is the financial mirror, where a standard bank statement passes through a glowing mirror, transforming raw numbers into the specific emotions and past memories they represent. Examining this financial landscape forces a conscious recognition of the hidden heuristics and childhood stories behind every purchase. The statement becomes a reflection of the self. Advisors then use motivational interviewing to facilitate change. Motivational interviewing is a collaborative conversation technique that uses open-ended prompts to draw out a person's own internal motivation and goals. Financial wellness requires illuminating these hidden scripts and integrating our psychological architecture with the math. This awareness provides conscious, holistic control of our wealth.